My name's Jordan Allen Womack. I'm the son of Brigadier General James E. Womack, who's being inducted into the Hall of Honor. His service to his nation and his state and his community. And Dad was just a consummate leader from then through the end of his career when he was Chief of Staff for the Air Guard and working at the state level. I joined the Air Force as an air cadet after going to Baylor for a while, where his dad and grandfather had been on the faculty and gone to Baylor, but he joined Air Cadets and kind of stopped going to college, joined the Air Force, and that was 1952, right after he met my mother. And he got out of the Air Force in about 58 after doing after-war Korea and K-14 and then Chitose, Japan. And then he came back to Albuquerque to finish his degree and get a law degree before law school. He found out there was an Air Guard unit in town, and he found out they had F-80s in Albuquerque that guys were flying in this thing called the New Mexico Air Guard. And he went out and met Dave Quinlan and Vernon King and other guys that were flying, was pretty much hired on the spot and started flying F-80s, and then they transitioned to the F-100 and then the A-7, and then he retired in '87. He loved being a fighter pilot, and he didn't think he was gonna fly anymore after he got out of the Air Force. So he just loved being able to fly the skies in New Mexico and go on TDYs. He just loved the F-100, especially because he flew it 246 combat missions in Vietnam and got the Silver Star over there. That was really important to him. I think Vietnam was probably the most important year of his career, at least the way he looked at it. And then to come back and transition, you know, they got back in '69, and then in '72, I believe, or '74, they transitioned to the A-7, and they flew that all over the world. And then at the same time, rising through the ranks as a part-timer, he found out from General Jolly, the Army tag, that there was a Brigadier General slot for a person called Chief of Staff that had never been filled. And they felt like he was the right guy for that because of his leadership skills. And that meant the world to him to rise through the ranks to that rank. And he got to be the first active mission-capable flying general in the Air Guard in the state. And he just loved giving his life to the Guard and to the community. Him and his two best pals after Vietnam, Bud Weaver and Cato Williams, the three of them developed the New Mexico chapter of the National Fighter Pilots Association. And that was a neat thing that they did, and they did it in part because Norland Daughtry, a real close friend of Dad's, was still a prisoner of war when they got back from Vietnam. So they wanted to honor not only him, but all the men that had been killed in action and were still missing in action in Vietnam. And they developed the Flame of Hope through that effort of making a chapter of Fighter Pilots Association in New Mexico. One of the highlights of his legal career as far as the Guard goes was he was able to help guardsmen who were having trouble having children of their own adopt children. And he always, you know, that was kind of a private thing, as you can imagine, but he did that for several enlisted and officer friends in the Guard, and it meant a lot to him. He told stories with tears in his eyes of how he could walk out of a hospital and hand them their new baby and cut through all the red tape as an attorney. And I think Dad's two most important things that he always stressed whenever given the opportunity to speak in public was love for one another and having a sense of humor. Because he was always the guy that never raised his voice, and he was always the guy that would tell you, you know, loosen up. You know, somebody'd come over just so agitated about this or that at work, or, you know, the commander did this, or, you know, I'm having a fight with so-and-so. And it was always just, hey, step back, loosen up. This too shall pass. That was another great line of his, and not original, but a great, everybody thinks of that when they think of him. He just didn't let stuff bug him. And he stayed very even keel, and he was the perfect person to get advice from. And again, like I say, just a natural born leader. But men like my father, I think they really embodied that spirit of service to the community, service to the nation, and not an expectation of accolades. And that's why something like this is so special.